When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
He feels completely red in the face, totally embarrassed by that video, which is exactly how we should feel, because that's how we feel about him. We love it when he's embarrassed. It's very cute. Now, for those of you who want to see the video again, here it is. Just in case you haven't checked it out, feel free to check it out right there. That is the Space Lord video that you guys want.
Yeah, the first thing I think of when I hear the words Ash or Elias is that he's very kawaii. So this just reinforces that for me.
Exactly, right? I mean, it seems obvious that that's, the thing that you would want to see. So anyway.
You're right. You're right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I pancake catted the shit out of you people, and you deserved it for busting my nuts last week about the audio. Deal with it, okay? You all got pancake catted. All right, there is the actual video for Space Lord Asher. Anyway, this has been a hell of a week, Mark. This has been a hell of a week. In EVE, I'll tell you, I have not alarm clocked this many times in years.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Brisc, the truth is, being a wormholder, kind of watching this whole thing play out from the outside in, it kind of feels like when you're living in an apartment complex and you can hear something going up, on in the unit above you, and it sounds real violent and you can't really make out all the details, but like you don't know if you should call somebody or not. It feels a lot like that. Things are blowing up right now. I'm in a big way up north.
It was one of these weeks, let me tell you. So it started, and we're going to go through the whole timeline of this because this is our top story. I'll just be real quick in the beginning to give you a preview where we're going, and then I got other stuff to talk about. So it starts on Sunday with one of the biggest tie-dye fights since the Vietnam War. The result was node crashes and all kinds of crazy things happening. Ridiculous tie-dye like we haven't seen in ages. The Fraternity and Horde coalition, which we have been fondly referring to, or not so fondly, depending on how mean you are, as the Fart Coalition, pulls out the victory. They managed to save the armor timer on their staging Keepstar and X-47. They lost the armor timer in the other systems, and they lost a bunch of Fortizars, but this was a big deal for them because not only did they save the X-47 Keepstar, they also killed about 300 billion worth of our battleships. That was a big deal. We spent 2 days listening to them crow about how wonderful it was, and that sets up the next thing that happened, which was Wednesday, which was the next part of this battle. It was the kill timers.
Before you talk about this battle, I was told that this was going to be a big goon feed. That's what I was promised. I saw it on Reddit, actually. And as you know, Brisc, everything on Reddit is fact. So what happened on Wednesday?
So on Wednesday, after proclaiming loudly, Gavins proclaims loudly that there's going to be a feed, a goon feed. Well, there was a feed, but it certainly wasn't on the goon side. And when the dust settled, almost $1 trillion ISK was lost on the fart team side. So it turned into, as is common, you count your chickens before you hatch, and all of a sudden victory turns to ashes in your mouth. And Gavins was having to eat crow and ended up saying at the end of the day, which was an alternative title for this week's stream, not the ideal outcome.
True.
Which is, again, one of my favorite things about the Duck of Disappointment is he is the king of understatement. And then that moves forward. We move forward to Friday, where we had another fight, and that included some assets in Pochvin that were very vital to Fraternity's crabbing and farming efforts in Pochvin that Rokapel finally was able to kill after years of doing this. So we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. But before we talk about any of that, what I want to do is say thank you. And I'm saying thank you to all of you in the audience right now. And here's the reason why.
Oh boy.
You know, I spent the entire beginning of the show with Mark working on the damn audio here.
Yeah.
And I thought I fixed it, and apparently I didn't. Anyway, backing up. If you recall the end of last week's show, the Big Red Boat asked us to provide this link. This is the GoFundMe for his after-school fitness club that he's putting together for the school that he teaches out in Ohio. He has he teaches in an impoverished school district. He has a number of students who can't afford shoes and workout clothing and those types of things. His original goal was to raise $200 to buy some shoes and some clothes for the kids in his class so that they could do this. I put this up within about the span of 2 minutes. We had blown through that $200 goal and hit 800. Yeah. And then we rated Boat, who was streaming at the time, an hour after through an hour of him talking and with the meta show in the background, we were able to raise over $4,000 for Boat's charity. That is a testament to you people.
Yeah, it's not shown up here right now on the screen, but one anonymous donor donated $2,000 to this, which is not insane. It was very cool. It's a cool thing to do. If you can do that and you can offer that kind of money to a cause like this, then good on you. That's very cool.
And I just have to say, I'm blown away. I'm always blown away by the charity of the people that spend their time playing this game. And it's whether it's Plex for Good, whether it's the many, many auctions that we've done on Rampage Incorporated, where we've raised more than $10,000 for a variety of different charities, whether it's Boat's charity. And I'm going to link the GoFundMe in the chat here if anybody wanted to jump on that who hadn't had a chance to last week. There is the link. That is not a pancake cat. You people, you always come through. And I have to say, there is no other community in gaming, I don't care what game it is, that has consistently over the years opened their wallets for other folks who play this game and for those that are in need. Whether it's other charities, whether it's Plex for Good, it doesn't matter where it is, you guys show up. So thank you. And on behalf of Boat and everybody else, thank you. I think this is going to make a big difference in the lives of a lot of kids that none of us will ever get to know or meet. But you know what? Sometimes the best way of giving, the best way of having an impact is when you don't even know it's happening. It just is. And there's going to be a kid out there who gets a chance to get in shape and spend some time working out. And who knows where he might end up in 10, 15, 20 years. Thanks to your donation. So thanks, guys. We appreciate that very much. Now we're going to go on to our top story of the week.
Which
the
one?
Fun.
There are truly so many.
The roller coaster of emotion that has been the last week in the war in the North. So on the screen, I'm showing you right now, this was the battle report from Sunday morning's fights. And as you can see, this was an absolutely ridiculous number of systems that we were in. Now, Mark, you weren't there, unfortunately.
True.
Which is sad, because I would love to see you in some of these fights, because I think you'd enjoy them.
But no one's given me a super to sit in yet. So
is that what it is? We need to get you a super.
If I had a super,
what's going on?
We weren't working that out.
Why is my NVIDIA broadcast popping up in front? I didn't need that. All right, so I'm looking for my pen and I can't find my damn pen, so I can't write on the screen. But if you see here, the main part of the fight was an X-47, and the numbers were just absolutely ridiculous. We had over 6,200 people in local at one point. The Guinness World Record for the absolute most people that you can have, that we have had in one single PvP fight in EVE Online in history, was one of the M2 fights, and it was 6,557 people. So we were within striking distance of the world record on a random Sunday morning over this one Keepstar that was the staging system for 47. It was absolutely crazy. And the result was a pretty significant feed. Now, granted, the Fart Coalition lost about 135 billion ISK worth of stuff, but they killed 324 billion ISK worth of stuff. And the worst part of it was, at least the argument that they made at the time, and I don't know if I agree with this, but this is the argument that Gavins and the folks on the other side was, we didn't have to take that fight. Because here's what had happened. We had 4 different Keepstar timers coming out right around the same time. We were able to pause and reinforce 3 of the 4 Keepstars. We killed a number of Fortizars, but the X-47 Keepstar had repaired before we even were able to get in position to fight. Because, again, one of the problems when you get this many people on the server is the calls on the server to start your gun shooting, to target something, to lock something were taking so long. And one of the big criticisms that came out of this fight, and I think it's legit to a certain extent, is the repair timer on Keepstars goes down in real time, regardless of what the time dilation effects are in the system. So if the system is at a 10% time dilation, which means 6 minutes or 10 minutes to 1 second of real time, it just, or I'm not even sure if that's what it is, or something like that. But it's a ridiculously compressed thing where a fight can last a very, very, very long time. The repair timer is going down in real time. So we were having calls on the server for actions like locking a structure, shooting the structure that were taking 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. So despite the fact that there were multiple fleets on grid, multiple battleship fleets on grid, including me in the Init fleet, Asher had a fleet. There were a number of fleets from B2. There were fleets from every part. Dracarys was there as well. Everybody that was part of this war had fleets on grid. In fact, the Init and the Goon fleets were at 0 on the Keepstar. In a Sinojam system, we did not have any capitals. We were in Apocalypse Navy issues and Megathron fleet issues. The Goons were in Leshax. There were other ships out on other fleets out, and literally we're sitting there on the Keepstar. We had gotten there before the timer had gone into repair mode, and we were not able to lock and fire to pause that Keepstar timer before it had repaired. At that point, the question was, well, what do we do? And the decision was made at the highest levels to let's stick around and fight. The bad guys are here. We are here. Why are we not going to fight? So we stuck around, and we did. So we didn't have to take that fight. We could have tried to extract at that point because the strategic objective had been failed. We were not able to ref that Keepstar. And so we could have left, but we chose not to. And the result was we had a tough day. A lot of us died, including me. I lost a Megathron fleet issue in that fight. In fact, I'm happy that I lost it because I lost it before the node crashed, so I didn't get rubber banded, which we will talk about in a moment. So this fight was, I think, one of the most frustrating for a lot of people because if you're a newer player and you had just started in the last 2 years, you'd never been in a 10% tie-dye fight like this. And a lot of these fleets, I remember, I didn't go to sleep that night. We had Saturday Night Swarm Saturday night that ran into early morning, 1 a.m. or so on Sunday. The fleet form-up was 4 a.m. Sunday, so I just stayed up. So I was up for almost 24 hours in this fight. We formed up at 4. By the time things started kicking off, we were in the middle of it, and then downtime hits at 7 a.m. It was also Spring Forward Day in the United States for daylight savings, so a lot of people lost an hour anyway, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But then we're all trying to log back in. Mark, have you ever tried to log in to a server when 6,000 of your friends, well, I guess 6,000 characters are also trying to log in at the same time?
I have not, but I've seen the outcome of it, and it was not good.
It was a shit show, to put it bluntly.
It's funny. It's funny. Like I said, watching it from an outsider's perspective, you know, when things are happening like this, I just get glimpses, right? You see what's happening on Zkill sometimes. You hear people talking about it in other discords. And the moment that I knew where things had started to pop off was I woke up on Sunday morning and saw that I had like 50 missed messages in the CSM Discord of all the different CSM going, "The fuck happened?"
Yeah,
and it did not get much better from there.
And that tends to be the case when we are dealing with stuff like this. So I was surprised. I was really surprised about the fact that, you know, we were complaining about what happened and trying to figure out what happened. So it took about an hour to get, and I was surprised because we actually got a CCP response, which we'll get to in a second, but I want to line things up because other things happened. So we're everybody's bum rushing the login server. Nobody's able, a lot of people were not able to log in within a reasonable amount of time. It took almost an hour before some of these fleets got back on grid. And then once that hour was up, by the time that everybody had started logging back in and the fight was ongoing, the node crashes. And this was completely unexpected. CCP, at this, as far as we know, has still not figured out exactly what caused that node crash, and they are investigating it. But the node crash was significant enough that when the server rebooted and came back online, the last save state that it had was right after downtime. Like all the stuff that had happened in the previous, hour was forgotten, and it had literally the last save state was right after downtime. So what was the result? Well, at the time, people called it a rollback. It was not a rollback. It was essentially a rubber banding, and we all jumped back an hour. And the result was a lot of people that had spent that previous hour escaping, getting out of these bubbles, finally deaggressing, getting out of the system, found themselves back on that Keepstar grid and getting shot, and it was absolute pure chaos. So I was surprised to see this, because my normal expectation from CCP when something crazy like this happens is they simply tell us, well, you guys tried to bring 6,000 people. That's what happens when you bring 6,000 people. But Paragon actually came out there and flat out gave us an information dump that I had not seen before, explaining all the situations and that what they're doing about it. So I want to say thank you to CCP Paragon. Thank you to CCP for at least acknowledging the community was pissed about this, and that we wanted to find out what the hell actually happened.
Well, I think it's interesting about this, Brisc, is we know this just from talking about talking to CCP how assured they are about the robustness of their equipment. They've assured us they've spared no expense in the hardware, and I believe them. I don't think they would necessarily, they have no reason to lie about that. They've worked pretty hard to make sure that the stuff they've got is good. So seeing them come out then and explain what happened, as opposed to just saying like, well, you put 6,000 people in a system, what do you expect to happen? Makes me think that this is something that they think should be unusual, something that they think should not have happened. And the kind of the silence on why it happened and the investigation that they're doing now really speaks to the idea that they think this is weird, and they think that these sort of things, we should be able to get 6,000 people in the system doing what we were doing. Like that should not be an unusual thing. So I agree
with you 100%. And I think that hopefully we'll figure out what exactly happened here, and then make sure in the future it doesn't happen again. Because again, we can't have these types of fights. We can't have these types of wars where we know we're going to go into this kind of tie-dye, but the outcome turns on server weather. Now every FC is aware, and we've talked about this a lot over the years on this show, especially in regards to M2 and the armor timer in M2 and some other things that happen. The bottom line is you always have to take server weather into account. You never know what's going to happen. And there were a lot of new things on this grid during this fight that we hadn't seen before. We had goons were in Leshak's to ref this Keepstar. That was a change. Nobody's ever done that before. And then you had the Paladin fleet from Horde, which was their big Marauder doctrine, that's supposed to be able to sit on that Keepstar, go into Bastion, hit hard out to 300 kilometers, and basically decimate anything that's not a that's not a capital ship. But even the capital ships would be under pressure from that many Paladin shooting. You had all this kind of stuff on the screen, and it wasn't anything we'd seen before. So we had a lot of novel things that were being tested for the first time. And then we also had Stormbringers as well. So there was a lot of things going on that grid that could have contributed to this node death. But the reality was, until we actually tried it, we wouldn't know. And I think now Asher and Shines and Gavins and Arcadius and all of the other FCs that were out there are going to be starting to figure out, which of these doctrines works in heavy tie-dye, which can we bring out again, which ones can't we? And we just have to deal with it. So
Brisc,
thank you to CCP Paragon for actually explaining, kind of what happened.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Paragon, of course, as usual. I'm not going to drop the old Keck W on you this time. Appreciate you coming out and doing that. I have a question. You brought up, interesting, you mentioned it, and I'm glad that you did, the Horde Paladin fleet. Now, I know some people who know me know that my position on Paladins tends to be fuck them. So I was so surprised to see a Paladin fleet get slapped the way it did, as was pointed out by one Pro God legend on Reddit, that it was strange and unusual that the Paladins ate shit the way they did. Brisc, do they have amulets in those Paladins? Were they wearing?
Those were some pretty blingy Paladins, as I recall. I mean, they weren't blingy, but I'm pretty sure they had implants. I know that we had implants on the Wednesday fight. We didn't bring them on the Sunday fight, so I think most of them did have amulets.
I think it was a throw, Brisc. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it was a throw, and here's why I think that. I think that known Paladin appreciator, Storm Delay, is probably speaking on behalf of Paladin fetishist Gavins, wants to make sure that CCP has no interest in nerfing the poor misspoken Paladin and threw the match so that they would look bad. It's a shame. These kind of power plays happen, man. It's unfortunate.
Well, and we'll get there because the big Paladin feed happened on Wednesday, and this was the Sunday fight.
So you're talking about the Sunday. Okay, never mind.
We're moving forward. We're moving forward a little bit. But we're going to talk about this in a second because I think it's pretty funny. So we finished up with this, and I'm going to throw this up on the screen because I think this is funny. This was, and unfortunately, I don't have my pen out, so I can't. My pen is not out. Unfortunately, it will not load for me right now, so I have to deal with this. But this was what Gavin started saying after the big fight on Sunday, and we got a lot of shit. I was mocked incessantly during the Imperium News breaking news stream on Sunday morning for trying to spin at least a little bit to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we didn't win in X47, but we managed to get to strategic objectives, all the other spots. I was told I was a liar and bullshitter, and X47 isn't our staging. Okay. And a bunch of other stuff that was complete horseshit. And then, of course, later in the week, they kept going. Hey, you guys fed. Hey, you guys fed. Good job feeding. We can't wait for the next feed. And then Wednesday. So Gavins, our boy Gavins, here he is right there. Our boy, Pensive Peach himself, says he's pre-pinging another chance for a big goon feed on Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Eve time. Crazy time zone, but if you can make it, it's pretty much guaranteed that either we get a bigly feed from goons or they fail to kill one or several keep stars. Crazy time zone. I'm going to repeat that. It's pretty much guaranteed that either we get a bigly feed from goons or they fail to kill one or more keep stars. Now, of course, he tempers it. He says, not going to lie, and I'll pull Gavins' face down. I don't care a whole lot about these keeps, but the wood chippering and the tears over server weather have been too good to turn down this chance. We're also going to pre-ping move some dreads and paladins, so it's easier to hop on for people that show up a bit later. More about this today. And then he goes another one. Hello, U.S. time zone. Did you know goons are a fundamental part of a nutritious breakfast? Big op coming tomorrow morning. Frag a few goons. Shacks over breakfast, a very healthy start of the day. And then even mid-fight, he is going and saying, here's some of the stuff that people were saying to us, like, oh, look, PanFam tie-dye goons and all this other kind of stuff, which amused me. But then he says, in the middle of the fight, everything's fine. Too soon to celebrate, and there are other keeps that will likely die, but looking pog so far. Now the key is whether we can get a lot more numbers as China time zone goes into full swing. I have never before in my EVE career see such an absolute, like, pre-baked bread filled with crow that an autocrat from one of the big groups has to eat. I mean, this was Villy worthy. Yeah. Of how wrong Gavins turned out to be at the end of this fight. Because the reality was, it was not goons who fed, it was fart that fed. Look at this kill mail. Real bad. Oh boy. This is the four sections. 5ZXX was where the main fight was. X47 was not really that contested that morning. ROIR and FTAC-N also had dead keep stars in them. Fart lost almost 1 trillion ISK, and if these numbers were accurate with the current costs, because the market endpoint is down, they are not. I'm sure it was more than 1 trillion ISK worth of stuff. 2, 100 billion ISK lost on the goon side. The Fart guys lost 3 times the amount of stuff that they were able to kill Sunday morning, just 4 days before this feed happened. And Gavins is out there saying, it's guaranteed goons will feed bigly. Didn't feed bigly. It's guaranteed they'll fail killing one or more keeps. We killed all 3 of them. And not only that, as ProGod noted, they lost 300 of the 388 Paladins that they brought. They lost 108 of them for 136.8 billion ISK alone on the Wednesday fight.
Wow.
And the other best part is, and look at this, Mark, I want to just show you, then I'm going to shut up and let you talk for a minute.
Please.
Goons and Init and B2, Goons, Init, B2, Brave, Dracaris, the former Fire Guys, Legion of XDev, Blob, all these guys, Volta, everybody else. We outformed Fraternity in China time zone. Now, granted, it's a Wednesday morning. It was a weekday. But I don't think anybody thought that that was going to happen at all at any point during this war. But the numbers don't lie. They had 1,831 folks log in at that time period. Goons, Fraternity themselves, 879 people. Goons brought 931. That is absolutely crazy. And I don't think it was anything any of us could have possibly foreseen when this week started. Let me just tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the time zone thing is nuts. I mean, I have alarm clocked plenty of timers in my day, and you know, they've all been pretty toxic, but they were all EU timers, and a Chinese time zone on timer, an AUTZ timer, is kind of insane to imagine getting that many people online for, especially for a group that is not traditionally strong in that time zone. But yeah, I want to make my point again. Paladins, right? Paladins, I've seen what big blobs of Paladins can do, and I know that the dynamics of this were shifted a little bit, but it should not have been that bad. It was pretty bad. I mean, it was really, really bad. That's a lot of Paladins. But I mean, the good news is, you're going to see a lot of people who produce Paladins make bank right now, as Horde scrambles to replace that golden fleet. Yeah, I mean, it seems almost like somebody is trying to aim for Marauders getting a buff instead of a nerf.
Instead of a nerf, okay.
Okay.
So going back, you saw Gavins talking about how great everything was, and this is going to be a great feed, and all this other kind of. So, at the end of the day, the bottom here, right here. Huge thank you to everyone who showed up today for the fight. As promised, big brawl was had over the keep stars. One keep in friendly system was saved. That was X47. That one was not a kill timer. That was a armor timer. They've saved that 3 times now. Just to keep that in mind. The 2 in NPC space were killed, as well as a 3rd keep in a hostile system. Not the ideal outcome.
Yeah.
Not the ideal outcome, says Pensive Peach.
Yeah.
But it was worth a shot. And honestly, I can't fault him for saying the whole, it's not the ideal, but it's worth a shot, because that is what we said Sunday.
Yeah.
Almost word for word what I said, what Asher said, what others said about Sunday's fight. This was not the ideal outcome, but hey, you know what? It was worth a shot. And we tried, and we had a good time.
Yeah.
As much fun as you can have in 10% tie-dye over a 6-hour period. But hey, you know what? I like those kinds of fights. Call me crazy, but I enjoy those kinds of fights. But the bottom line is, after spending 3 days herfing it up, mocking us for losing 300 billion the fart guys turned around and lost $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And it gets worse.
Yeah.
And it gets worse, because what happened next? And by the way, if you have not seen Resorian's shots of 5ZXX and some of the fights that happened there, you need to.
That's
CCP
cool.
Aperture, aka Resorian. If you have seen his pictures, this man is a genius at getting some of the best Eve photos you will ever see from these fights. They are beautiful. I will link the album, and it was on Reddit, but I will link the album for you guys here in a second once I get a chance to get off this. But let me move forward. Actually, I'll talk about this a little bit up, and then you guys can see. I'll link this in the chat. While we're in the process of setting up all these timers and having the war in the north, there was stuff going on in the background. And here is the story, or at least part of the story. When the Triglavians were able to pull the 27 systems out of HiSec and elsewhere into this new region called Pochven, everything that was in those areas went with it. And one of those was a fraternity-owned Fortizar in Nelvula.
Yeah.
Now, this thing has been the bane of many of the folks who live in Pochven's existence since it started. There are only this is one of two for Keepstars that are not Keepstars, Fortizars that were still left in Pochven. There aren't a lot of structures left. A lot of them have been killed. Mm-hmm. You cannot replace.
Yeah, cannot anchor more.
Cannot anchor more. So when they're gone, they're gone. And Mark's going to love this. There ain't no asset safety in Pochven. It's just like your space.
That's right. Isn't that cool? Isn't it fun?
Right.
Isn't it neat? So the backstory to this actually,
go ahead. Keep going. I would love to hear it.
Is a little bit deeper even than this. So there used to be two other Fortizars in Nalvula that were both owned by Rote Capel, and Fraternity some months ago showed up with crazy numbers, and over the span of a couple of months managed to push out those other forts because they were really mad that the handful of middle-aged dads in Rote Capel were using Nalvula as a space to blops from into their region. So it is a little bit of schadenfreude on behalf of myself, hang on. It's not, schadenfreude is not quite the right word. Feels really, really good to see that fort go down.
Karma's a bitch, right?
It is a bitch. We spent so much time with those timers trying to defend both the Rote Capel forts and trying to attack that fraternity fort, like I said, months and months ago. And to see it now finally go down, is this the way that I would have liked it to have gone down? Would have been a lot cooler if our motley band had been able to do it, like I said, some months ago. Yes, that would have been very cool. But seeing the Goon Hammer come down on it like this is just...
Well, and I want to say, I don't want Imperium to take credit for this, because to be bluntly honest, this was Rote Capel's show. Okay. And I give Rote credit because they watched everything that we were doing in the north. They saw all the timers that we were setting, and they were smart, and they hit Nalvula at the right time to set up a timer Friday morning that coincided with the next X47 timer that we were going to hit. Mm-hmm. That was very smart. Now, granted, it was a couple of hours after was X47, so we had to hit Nalvula in the morning, but it was long enough that it enabled goons and others to come and help, because anything that punishes fraternity in this war is good. And the result was...
Yeah, man, I'm super happy for the Poch guys. This is those guys are very, very cool. It's good to see them get a win like this. It doesn't replace the fort that they lost, but one less structure in Poch, and very cool that everybody got to experience a little bit of no asset safety. How cool would this be if it were everywhere? Makes you think.
Exactly.
It does make you think.
And just for the record, you are seeing that right here. There is still an Erebus in Pochven. And Rote's got it. Killing this Keepstar, or killing this Fortizar, is a big deal for a variety of reasons, not the least of which you can even see it still had its rigs on. So Fraternity was not expecting and didn't have any time to clean this thing out. And you want to talk about loot pinatas.
Oh yeah.
Have any of you guys seen what it's like when a big Fortizar that used to be a stager, or one of these structures, goes abandoned and then dies? Or hey, even say, for example, a Keepstar dies in wormhole space. Have you ever seen what these look like? Because if you haven't, it's pretty freaking cool. I know I have twice. Look at that. That is the loot pinata Every single yellow thing you see on there is a station container filled with somebody's shit.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, if you haven't ever sat on one of those grids as this is happening, I got to be honest with you, there's nothing really quite like it in the game, because it doesn't happen all at once. Usually what'll happen is the structure will go down, it'll explode, and then there'll be there'll be a pregnant pause, a couple of moments where you're just sitting on the grid waiting, and then you'll start to see splashes of yellow and white show up as cans start to populate on the grid. And this one's pretty intense. I gotta be honest with you.
I got my pen back. Yay.
Yeah,
my pen started working.
One quite like that in a long time. I mean, I've sat on some pretty thick loot grids before, but this one is juicy. And the way it works, for those who don't know, is that every can is the hanger of a person who had something in there. So if you had any assets in that structure, they all got kicked out. Your hanger in its own can got kicked out. The same goes with any corporate hangers that were in there at the time. There's obviously one in there for the station mods, and it just looks so good.
And of course, the Minmatar shuttle that someone delivered to me to ensure that there was something on my kill board from this, as always happens whenever these things die. So I'm going to put this back out here because now I have my pen and I can highlight it for you. Look at that. Again, there you go. Look, there is your Titan in Pochven. Lots of dreads, lots of dreads, lots of dreads, and all the Road Capel and Snuff guys were the ones that here. Even Laserhawks even had a dread in there, got in on this fight. I mean, there was a ton of shit on this Fortis. I keep calling it Keepstar because I want to, because it seems like it's that important. But man,
yeah,
you got goons, you got in it, you got everybody. Look how many folks.
Oh yeah, dude.
Woo!
Yeah, feels good to see that one go down. That feels really, really good.
Lots of people in there. I wish I had been in there. Unfortunately, I had to work Friday morning, so I could not go. 597 people on this kill mail. The battle report is equally pretty big, and the result overall was, boom, right here. Fraternity, who had 1,675 people there to defend this thing, it dies with 174. And I don't even think, probably not even that many. There probably wasn't that many people there. Yeah. It was probably that many people that had stuff in there that it died. Yeah, that they got at kill mails that was generated from this. So it wasn't, they probably didn't have that many. As my understanding, it was uncontested, really. So that 1,675 fraternity people, that's how many fraternity folks had assets in that structure. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty nuts.
And it goes boom, boom. And Goons and Rote and those guys all together lost maybe 30 billion-isk total.
No asset safety is so fun.
37 billion.
Everybody
I know,
it's
nuts, right? It's crazy.
So good.
It's totally crazy. So, and then in addition, on that Friday morning, so again, in addition to the Nalvula fight here, where Fraternity lost their last Fortizar, and one of the last Fortizars, I think the only other one that's left that's still in there is in Scarcon. The rest of them, there are other like free ports and things that are smaller, but nothing that is Fortizar size. So that's an end of starting to becoming an end of an era for Pochven. Now, there was, in addition to that, there were also a number of fights over a variety of iHubs, as well as the Ansiblex, connecting X-47 to other areas, heading back towards Venal for the Fart Coalition guys. Over here, this was the fight on that. And again, this was a very, very rough fight for Fraternity and Horde. They lost 20 billion S2, the Imperium and B2's 5. This was fleet that was run, I believe, by Arcadius. Yep, there he is right there in the monitor. Arcadius's fleet, and on one side, and then all the boys from Goons were over here as well. There wasn't a whole ton of fighting over it, but the result was that Ansiblex was put into ref, which is a big deal. And then, in addition, if you look over here, we were able to ref the UR TAC iHub Now, this was a number of the iHubs came out. We were trying to hit them all. We were only able to hit the one. So they were able to push us off on a number of the other iHubs, which I think was probably what they were hoping for. It was a good start for them. But Friday, in addition, we also re-refed the X47 keeps. So tomorrow morning, we've got Ansiblex kills coming out. We've got a whole bunch of other things that are going to be on there. So, guys, it's Dotland, all right? I just don't have dark mode on because it's easier to see with this. Deal with it. Dear Lord, you all sit in the dark like a bunch of vampires. In any event, that was the big news for this week. So the week started on Sunday with a very, very bad fight. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to say, this is a real quick note. Goons have overtaken Horde again to be the #1 biggest alliance in the game. You can see here, Horde's dropped to 35,302. Goons is up to 35,679. Gavins can breathe a sigh of relief. He hates being the biggest group. Now, I don't know what happened here. There was a drop of about 800 from Horde, whether that was a purge of inactives or something else. I don't know. The same can be said. I don't know why Goon's numbers went up. I don't think we've gotten any big increases, but I know that there is still a purge of Karma Fleet and other groups that are going through that has not been completed yet. So this number may drop. So back and forth, Horde have been fluctuating back and forth. But last week we mentioned that Horde was the biggest alliance in the game. That has changed. I want to make sure we say that because we want to be fair to our friends in Fart. All right. So that was this week. This was a roller coaster of emotion for both sides. If you are in Fart, you are riding high on Sunday morning. You killed 300 billion ISK worth of goons, supers, goon battleships and init battleships and B2 battleships. And you really stuck those Imperium guys in the wood chipper, and it was great. And then you're down on Wednesday when your vaunted Paladin doctrine turns into a lot of expensive kill mails, and the 3 keep stars that you thought you were going to save, at least one of them, all died. And then maybe you're up a little bit because you managed to save the keep a couple times, but same for the goons. We managed to ref Anansi and ref the keep again, and we killed the Nalvula keep star, and the Rote guys are riding super high because they finally did what they've been trying to do for a while. This is war, ladies and gentlemen. This is war. And this is also why you don't spend too much time crowing and praising yourself for your victories, because they're fleeting. You may win one big one day, but you can't say the war's over. And the next big fight, maybe things don't go your way. You never know.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's what happened here.
You got to leave the shit talking to the line members. I mean, that's the domain of the day-to-day guys. I mean, don't get me wrong, you definitely want to jazz up your own people. I've certainly done that plenty myself. Sometimes in a way that some might seem as untoward. But these things happen. And I'll tell you the thing that I like the most, and the last I'll say about all this, because it was an exciting week. I know we're drawing close to our time here, but it is very cool. Gavins made a good point. I know this was Asher's position as well. There is nothing worse in this game than forming for a fight and then not doing anything. There is nothing worse in the game than spending all this time and getting everybody together and getting in one room and then just sitting there looking at each other and then saying, all right, good fleet, we'll call it, and we'll see you next time. Nothing worse than that. I mean, that is the absolute dregs of this game. It's caused plenty of people to leave over the years. So seeing a handful of FCs who are willing to be like, fuck it, and then just, do the thing is exciting. It's refreshing. It's fun. And even if it's not a fight you have to take, you don't need an excuse to fight. Just fight. Fighting's good. Fighting's fun.
Fighting is fun. We like fighting.
Fun. Yeah.
Fighting is fun.
Tie-dye, not so much fun, but the fighting,
there you go.
That part's good.
Not so much fun. Now,
oh yeah.
Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. We wanted to talk a little bit about the patch that was dropped on Tuesday that included direct enlistment. Finally.
Campaign promise. There we go. We nailed it.
After being promised at FanFest last year that there would be a system put in the game that would allow people to participate in a meaningful way in faction warfare without having to leave their alliance, leave their corporation, and join Gal Mill or Amar Mill or Cal Mill. Now you can do that from your own current organization. Added to the game on Tuesday. And then, of course, we also had a number of interesting bugs that we've never seen before, like bugs where you can only launch one drone at a time. That was fun. Which, let me tell you, is really fucking annoying, especially in 10% tie-dye, just saying. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there was also a bunch of crazy drama that happened in LowSec this week that I apparently could not understand, but now I do, and I would love to talk about that at some point. So I think we're going to reserve potentially some of this stuff for not next week, but the week after, where we're going to talk about a little bit how this has gone. And I want to hopefully get a chance to talk to some people that have been participating in this so that we can see how the new thing is going. But anyway, attaboy to CCP. They promised they would get this out in first quarter. First quarter ends at the end of this month, so they beat their own deadline. Thank you. We like it when you do what you tell us that you're going to do it. It definitely helps to bring back a little bit of the trust. And I mean very little, but still, every time they say they're going to do something and they actually do it, that's a big win for all of us here who play EVE Online. Yeah. All right. Now, I saw that somebody had redeemed the Guide the Raid. Unfortunately, I can't honor that today, but I'll try to do it next time, because today is the start of... Mark, do you want to tell everybody?
Second week of the Captain's Cup tournament hosted by Jin Tan. It's a 6v6 tournament. I'll be casting matches in that tournament in about 10 minutes. So I went to Mr. Brisc on bended knee and begged, please, sir, please offer this raid to my good friends on the Eve and T channel. And he, like a benevolent patron, said yes.
Now this is going to be on CCP's channel, right? Is that right? Is it on CCP? I think it's on CCP's channel, because they're the one streaming with 1,300 people. So there you go. Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Meta Show for March the 18th, 2023. I'm Brisc Rubal, joined alongside Mark Resurrectus. You got to see us talk about all the stuff that happened in NullSec this week. We talked a little bit about CCP stuff. Thank you again for participating in Boat's fundraiser. And of course, if you didn't have a chance last week, the link was in the chat. We'd love for you to help him out. Next week, again, programming note, we will not be here. I am going on vacation. Why is Brisc not wearing a suit jacket? Because I'm half on vacation already, and I took it off. I'm going on vacation. I will be in Florida, so I will not be here, and I will not be thinking about EVE for an entire week. We will catch you guys the week after, which I believe is like right around April Fool's. It's right around April 1st, right? It should be close to that. So it is, I don't think it's on April 1st.
It is on April 1st.
It is. So we will be back on April 1st.
Maybe.
For the Meta Show. What could possibly happen on April 1st? I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. In any event, thank you guys for joining. Go watch Mark on the Captain's Cup over at CCP. We're going to raid them in a minute. And you stay classy, New Eden.